What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here, another podcast. What's going on in pop culture right now? Catch up pod. This week I was away on vacation. I missed some notable things, such as the 2025 Emmy Awards, new albums from Sabrina Carpenter, Joey Badass, Aespa, Chaeyoung of Twice, also the premiere of HBO's Task, also the premiere of the limited series Task on HBO. Gonna get into all of that. We got a busy fall season coming up. Movies are kicking into high gear as we speak. Very exciting. A lot to get into the next few months. Make sure you subscribe. YouTube.com/nostalgiapod. Linktree.com/nostalgiapod. See the links below. Get the best of 2025 Spotify playlist linked below. Let me know it's good, and let's get into it. What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with my reaction recap of the 2025 Emmy Awards. This is a season that I think surprised in some ways in terms of where the wins ended up taking place. We definitely could sense the tide turning. You could read the tea leaves over what ended up happening. I think nothing was super surprising if you were making the predictions the day of the awards. But if we reflect back on when the nominations came out, there's definitely some things that didn't go the way we might have expected originally. And I think that's interesting and cool and welcome. That's not always the case when it comes to the Emmys. So I'll just recap the, big, high level awards, and we'll talk about where things went. So a best drama series. This from the jump was really a battle between The Pitt and Severance, with Severance being the leading, nominated show for this Emmy Awards, cycle. And for the first time in 7 years or so, that most nominated drama series did not win the award. The Pitt ended up winning best drama series. Now that's a decision that I welcome. The Pitt to me is my second favorite show of the year after Andor, which unfortunately never really had a chance to win this category despite a just nomination. But The Pitt wins in its first season versus Severance season 2. And that's really awesome, and I think it speaks to two different modes of television, right? Severance is a show, lavish budget, very expensive, and impeccable production design and craft. To me, the most successful thing about this show. I'm not the biggest fan of it overall, but that's a show that took so much time and money, 3 years between seasons, right? Meanwhile, The Pitt, freshman show, a throwback in every sense. Obviously, all the ER comparisons, the ER sequel, the ER spiritual successor, all of that. The Pitt is a return to a traditional form of TV and traditional type of TV season, a 15-episode season at that, right? And The Pitt will be returning in a year's time from its first season, with season 2 coming out in January. People are really excited about what The Pitt is, and also it was really great show. I loved it. I loved the characters, loved the performances, and I think it just, in a lot of respects, is a polar opposite of Severance, and it seems that it just seemed to resonate with some people, enough people to end up beating a monumental show like Severance. And of course, Severance not winning Best Drama Series is definitely a loss for Apple, given all those nominations, because Apple did win Best Comedy Series, and they had a chance to win the double there for the first time since HBO did it, almost a decade ago with, I think it was Game of Thrones and Veep. And the studio winning Best Comedy Series, that makes a lot of sense. That was the heavy favorite, the most nominated comedy series. Just a show, due to what it's about, that lends itself to being very well liked by awards voters and being well liked by the town and all of that. Its competition was Hacks, the previous winner in the category, which was it's no cakewalk to win, but I think people were really excited to vote for the studio, and that's ended up what happened. Now, going into the awards, I was expecting The Pitt and Severance to split, and I wasn't really sure where it would go. I think I was leaning Noah Wyle winning Best Actor and Severance winning Best Drama Series. I think that's what I expected to happen, but what ended up happening was Noah Wyle also beat Adam Scott to win Best Drama Actor. So The Pitt won both those head-to-heads with Severance, which is not what I expected. Best Drama Actress also, to me, not a surprise, but to the betting markets, to the prognosticators, it was a surprise. The favorite was Kathy Bates from Matlock, the lone, broadcast television nomination in the field here. And I just never got on board with her being the favorite because of where that show lives. And I had always expected Britt Lauer to win for Severance, notably not even being nominated for Severance Season 1. Now she wins for Severance Season 2. I think that was a really good nomination and win. I definitely like it. Drama supporting actor, this was Tremel Tillman winning for Severance, defeating primarily Walton Goggins from The White Lotus Season 3 on HBO. And that's also kind of what I expected to win. I think that's the most exciting person to win in that category. Super Just. I was happy with that. Drama supporting actress. This is another one where it's like you look at the nominations, and this is a common problem with the Emmys of late, where a smaller number of shows really hog all the nominations. You had this happen with White Lotus Season 2. It happened again with White Lotus Season 3, where like seemingly the entire cast gets nominated across the supporting actor and actress fields. So you have a bunch of the White Lotus women nominated in this category, and we're like defaulting to like Carrie Coon being the favorite here, of course, previous, awards darling that she is. But it ends up going to Catherine Lanasa from The Pit, of course, for her portrayal as Nurse Dana. Really awesome win. And I think when the nominations came out, people were really stoked that she got nominated, but I don't think anyone was really expecting her to win. It kind of speaks to that momentum that The Pit kind of picked up throughout that voting cycle. Back to comedy here, the studio, of course, wins series. What this means, of course, and looking at the rest of the categories, is The Bear gets completely shut out for Season 3 after, winning, I think it was double-digit Emmys both times for Season 1 and 2. What does that mean? Obviously, Season 3 was the weakest of the 4 Bear seasons that we've gotten. It's also a show that should not be nominated in comedy series. We're, a broken record at this point with that topic, but maybe that's wearing on the voters, who can say. Comedy actress went to Jean Smart, her 4th win in a row. She has won it for all 4 seasons of Hacks. And while she's super great on the show, she remains good every single time. It would be nice if we could spread the love, just a little bit with that. Unfortunately, like who was the pick there? Was it Kristen Bell for Nobody Wants This? Io Debris for The Bear in a down year? There wasn't really like the true challenger this time around. I think because Io won before, there's less of a campaign to get her to win again. So I just kind of defaulted to Jean Smart, I guess you could say. Comedy actor, of course, went to Seth Rogen. Again, Jeremy Allen White, seemingly no threat to unseat him there. Adam Brody for Nobody Wants This, just not quite up to snuff in that category. Comedy supporting actress, I was very happy to see Hannah Einbinder win for Hacks, her first time winning after some nominations here. Super cool, of course, defeating the previous winner, Liza Colin-Zayas from The Bear. You had multiple studio people here. Maybe there was some vote splitting with Catherine O'Hara and Catherine Hahn, who can say. Comedy supporting actor, though, this is by far the biggest shock of the night, and very interesting for what it might mean. I was expecting Ike Barinholtz to win for the studio, but it was definitely a category that's up in the air, right? You had Harrison Ford for Shrinking, his first Emmy nomination, Coleman Domingo for The 4 Seasons, but an awards darling in general when you look to the Oscars and things like that. Evan Moss-Baccarat still here for The Bear, previous winner. Bowen Yang, Michael Urie here as well. But Jeff Hiller wins for Somebody Somewhere, the final season of that show. And to win a acting category for a show that otherwise was very scantily nominated and didn't have a strong history of previous nominations of previous seasons, that's like super unheard of. And I think it definitely opens up the prognostication in the future that, things can happen, because like this is completely out of left field. There's like very little precedent for this show winning a big category like that, given the level of nominations it had. So shout out Jeff Hiller, that's super cool. And of course, with limited series, this largely went chalk. Adolescence for Netflix wins limited series, and even though it had less nominations than The Penguin, it was seemingly the favorite the entire time, given just the cultural zeitgeist, came out a little bit more recently. Penguin also, in a sense, got its shine at the Globes, last year. So that's perhaps something. Kristen Milioti still wins Limited Actress for The Penguin, kind of by default, didn't have much of a true challenger there. Limited Actor, I was wondering if Colin Farrell could win for The Penguin here, like he did the Globes, but no, it ends up going to Stephen Graham for Adolescence. I was thinking Stephen Graham also gets the win as a producer for Adolescence. Maybe he wouldn't win for acting, but he did, which is fine. Limited Supporting Actress goes to Erin Doherty for Adolescence, super justified. And of course, Limited Supporting Actor goes to young Owen Cooper, the youngest winner in the category, the completely sensational breakout of the series. Super justified, even if it's all a bit predictable. And then, some of the other categories, drama series writing went to Dan Gilroy for Andor. Kind of amusing that only Dan Gilroy gets the official nomination there, even though we know that Tony Gilroy had his hand in every single aspect of that show. But I like the recognition, really happy with that. The Pit was nominated twice in that category. That might have did some vote splitting there. Well, you will take it nonetheless. Limited series writing went to Adolescence, Jack Thorne, Stephen Graham. So I think that's a triple for Stephen Graham, pretty sure. And then comedy series writing went to The Studio, Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg, and Friends. Of course, variety series goes to John Oliver, like normal. Talk series, though, goes to Stephen Colbert, in his final run of the show, of course, infamously canceled recently with all the controversy that was involved with that. So I think that was a bit predictable, even though Colbert hasn't previously won that category. But makes kind of sense narrative-wise, And then with directing, you have Seth Rogen winning again for comedy series directing. You have Adam Randall winning for Slow Horses on Apple for drama series directing. Didn't expect that. I definitely would have picked Giannis Metz for Andor myself. And then Phil Baranti wins for Adolescence for limited series directing as well. So yeah, I think like most of the time for most categories every single year, there's not a lot of quibbles to have. They're nominating good stuff. People are winning. It's largely earned. Would we like some more diversity in terms of volume of shows nominated? Yes. Too many people from the same show and supporting. Don't need to keep doing that. Otherwise, though, the Emmys are doing what they do. Obviously, they are the least popular of the major awards shows that we talk about here, pale behind the Oscars and the Grammys. Those challenges remain in terms of just the challenge of the concept of the awards television season. There's the fall spring season of TV doesn't make much sense and not really relevant to the average TV viewer anymore. Emmys are challenged, but for what they represent, for the small piece that they still do, I think it went pretty well. Let me know, though, what do you think of the 2025 Emmy Awards? Which winner were you most happy to see? And what do you want to see nominated next year? Me personally would love House of the Dragon Season 3 to get back on the board. Completely shut out, not nominated at all for Season 2, which I thought was a bit harsh myself. Hopefully they can get back up on the podium in the future. First Thrones season to have no nominations. I believe in HBO. Let me know, though. And for more TV reviews, as well as awards reactions and predictions, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up, Welcome Back to Nostalgia? Dave here with a review of the HBO crime drama limited series Task, starring Mark Ruffalo and Tom Pelphrey. This is the Brad Inglesby series follow-up to his HBO series Mayor of Easttown from a few years ago, set in the Delco area around Philadelphia, very familiar and similar setting to where Mayor of Easttown took place. Of course, that Kate Winslet-led limited series, big Emmys hit, big ratings hit. Now we're back with Task. And Mark Ruffalo, no stranger to working on an HBO limited series. Of course, he was the star of I Know This Much Is True from a few years ago, which despite filming in my hometown, I thought was a complete slog, and I was not a fan of that. As Brad Inglesby's follow-up to Mayor of Easttown, HBO's Task has a certain energy level that it's going to communicate to you. This is a dark show. This is a bleak show. This is a heavy show. That is what Inglesby is interested in, and that is also what Mark Ruffalo seemingly loves to do as well, playing these downtrodden, baggage-laden characters. What makes Task so appealing as a crime drama series is that it really dispenses with the mystery pleasantries. We spend a ton of time with Tom Pelphrey. He is the bad guy. He is the criminal that Mark Ruffalo is trying to find. And because the show is a character drama first, I just know we're going to be connected to all sides of the story as we go through this tale, and we don't have to really worry about like theorizing and true detectiving things. We're just here to sit with these characters and enjoy these great performances. Shout out Amelia Jones, completely unrecognizable from her performance in the Best Picture winner Coda from a few years ago. She's also great in this. Nice to see Fabian Frankel from House of the Dragon here as well. Thusu Madebu from the Underground Railroad. Stacked cast without question. While I don't expect this show to progress a ton of plot, of course, across its 7-episode series, I think we're going to take our time with this because, again, it's going to be character focused first. I just have a lot of trust in like Brad Inglesby's storytelling abilities following Mayor of Easttown, and I think he's quickly establishing himself as a pretty compelling, creator for TV, right? And again, it's not going to be for everyone, right? Because this is not going to be like fun. It's not going to carry a ton of levity. And maybe there's something to be said for the fact that it is so dark at all times, and maybe it doesn't have to be that way. But I'm pretty hopeful based on how Task has started that this is going to be, I think, a really just compelling crime drama series. I'm super into it. And Tom Pelphrey, someone who's been around, he's been in a lot of stuff, but this feels like a real great showcase for him as this sanitation worker who is moonlighting as a robber of various drug stash houses in the Philly Delco Valley area and stuff. I think that it's juicy as a crime drama series, but Pelphrey, I think, is bearing a lot already as the show begins, and I think his character probably will be the most compelling aspect of the show. I'm just guessing. And Ruffalo, making this, being commissioned, deputized to create this task force to track down these criminals before a Roger gang war incites. Of course, again, Pelphrey and his gang are robbing drug dealers. They're not like they're robbing good people necessarily, right? And he has to make this task force while he's been put out to pasture, and he has all this baggage and this family stuff, and he's an alcoholic and all that. A lot to deal with, right? And that's what this show is. There's just so much packed in here. And I'll be very curious how these dynamics play out. So I'm all aboard on Task. I know it's going to be heavy as we go. That just seems to be what Mark Ruffalo likes to portray with these complicated characters, but I'm with it. So let me know how you feeling about Task. Are you optimistic for this series? Let me know. And for more TV reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of Chaeyoung's debut solo album, Lil Fantasy Volume 1. Of course, Chaeyoung, the latest Twice member to release a solo following the 2 Nyan projects, the Geo, the Chewy projects. Misamo, 3-member subunit, released some stuff. Chaeyoung was one of the 3 members who hadn't released anything solo until now. Here we are, Lil Fantasy Volume 1. And of course, this is coming hot on the heels of a really spectacular 2025 for Twice. Of course, last September, they had the Strategy EP, which I thought had some highlights and was certainly a sign of where Twice was going, with leaning into some more Western trends. That really bore fruit on This Is 4 a few months ago, which to me was my favorite Twice EP perhaps ever. I thought it was really tremendous. A lot of great tracks on that. Of course, they then performed at Lollapalooza, which was a really great performance from the group. And they benefited from the success of K-pop Demon Hunters with their contribution on the song Takedown, which is an excellent track, one of my favorite Twice tracks. Chaeyoung, one of the 3 members on that track. And despite all that, Twice still found time to release a Japanese album a few months ago. They're gearing up for their 10th anniversary celebration stuff next month. They really never stop working. And now we're here with a solo record. And the Twice solo records have largely been pretty good. I thought the Nyan ones, both of them are great. They're excellent. Geo one was pretty solid. The Chewy one surprised me with how good it ended up being. And now here with Chaeyoung, who is my favorite Twice member. I'm a big fan of just, her kind of contributions to the group. Obviously, she's not as vocally important as, say, Nayeon or Geo are to the majority of Twice tracks. We know that. But to me, I think Chaeyoung just as like this kind of playful, like energetic younger member of the group. I've always appreciated what she contributes, and also being like the main rapper of the group and doing the Twice brand of rapping. I think of her contributions to songs like Icon and I Can't Stop Me, and I really appreciate what she does. And now we have Chaeyoung's debut solo album, Lil Fantasy Volume 1, which unfortunately is a massive disappointment and the least interesting of all the Twice solos to this point. I am really shocked at what this sounds like because it's very much unlike anything Chaeyoung does as a member of Twice. And by all means, I give you credit for making what you want to make, making one for her. All that's cool, but this is just not pleasant music for the most part. Sonically, this is largely pretty dull and uninteresting in the sense that it's just low energy. There's just not a lot of pop on this. I think production-wise, the song Shoot is a clear highlight. I give JYP credit for letting her do something like this that's clearly not commercial, but given how good she was on the K-pop Demon Hunter song Takedown from just a few months ago, to then go into this, which is just so moody and atmospheric, ambient, I'm just at a bit of a loss. That first track, Avocado, it's silky smooth, got that snare drum, got that king drum, but vocally it's just so understated with these breathy, airy vocals, and that's a consistent theme on Lil Fantasy here. Band-Aid, I think the drum tempo gets a bit quicker, but the vocals from Che are just so subtle again. Shoot, parentheses, Firecracker, as I said, the clear highlight, right? Because it wakes up, you have some drums, you have that guitar line. Vocally, it's a bit more expressive. Still feels a bit restrained, though. I think the hook's just fine. The verses are better. It's tough. I think the next song, Girl, it's more acoustic, but super dull. Ribbon, I think the bass drum hits pretty good. Ribbons, that is. I think the features fit the song pretty well. Compositionally, I guess it's a bit interesting, a bit more involved than some of the other tracks, but still not something I'm super interested in. And then Downpour, I think the beat is actually pretty cool on this, but the vocals are pretty flat. And then BF, the last two tracks, I mean, it just continues. I'm really kind of shocked at what this sounds like, and I'm trying to think of a comp here in terms of like solos and stuff, and I guess you could think of like the Kai album from earlier this year, also something I didn't really care for too much. Even something like with BTS, like the V solo, I thought that that was like a more like a torch song project, but that had such a tighter concept, right? And even if it wasn't the most like poppy thing from the BTS orbit, it clearly had like a lot more like I think vision to it, right? This Che project to me, I just don't know. I mean, it's just way too like up in the clouds for me, and it's not that it's different from Twice, like that's fine, and it's not that it's different from what I'm used to from Chaeyoung, right? Like I like her as a rapper, right? I like her on poppy stuff, fine. But what it is, it's just not that interesting, not that fun to revisit, not unique. It's just kind of blah. So, yep, this is definitely up there for the most disappointing K-pop release of the year for me. Let me know, what did you think of Chaeyoung's solo Lil Fantasy Volume 1? If you liked it, please let me know why. Again, I'm a big Twice fan, big fan of Chaeyoung specifically, but I'm let down by this tremendously. But for more K-pop reviews, more music reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with the review of Aespa's 6th mini-album, 6th EP, Rich Man. Man, Aespa, SM Entertainment K-pop group, coming off a truly spectacular 2024. To me, they had, without a question, the best year in K-pop last year. You had the success of Supernova and Armageddon earlier in the year, the Japanese single Hot Mess, which was a completely underrated banger, the Karina solo track Up, of course, the spectacular Whiplash, phenomenal year. Aespa really, to me, fully blossomed and fully came into their own as a group after, to me, being a bit inconsistent prior to last year. And now we're at a point where they are a huge force in K-pop, right? In terms of K-pop girl groups, I think they're super certified at this point, and they're a preeminent act, and that's great. And this is the first full-length project that we've gotten from them following the loose single Dirty Work from a few months ago, which is surprisingly not included on the Rich Man track list. Not really sure why that's the case. Unfortunately, Aespa's sixth EP, Rich Man, does not maintain the spectacular momentum they carried throughout all of 2024. I find this EP super inferior to their previous two releases. And the strange exclusion of Dirty Work only makes this EP weaker. The title track, Rich Man, is simply not up to snuff when you compare it to songs like Whiplash or Armageddon. This song has one of the weakest Aespa hooks in recent memory. It's just underwritten. It's just not there. And unfortunately, I didn't really care for most of the album cuts either. I was incredibly disappointed by this album because I just loved everything they did last year. I thought they really did not put a foot wrong. And to follow it up with Rich Man, to me, is just such a letdown. I think just musically, vocally, songwriting wise, it's just not there. You know, I think this is towards the bottom for me of all their EPs, to be honest. I don't know how it went this poorly, but that's what happened. You know, with that song Rich Man, you have this spoken intro from Giselle. Get some guitar, get some bass drum. The vocals start out pretty high energy, but ultimately that hook, I am a rich man, I take care of myself, there's just not enough to it. You know, it's just not good enough. It's just a thin chorus. I think the verse 2 Giselle delivery is pretty nice. The outro rap, it's actually pretty hard, but just not a song I really enjoy listening to all that much. Drift, you have this whistle, you have this kick drum. I think the Karina vocals are pretty catchy on it. I like those snaps on the pre-chorus, the build up to the drop. Again, though, another thin chorus. It just feels empty. I think the outro chant with the group vocals, the group chant sounds pretty cool. I like the bells there as well, but another song that just doesn't really work for me. Bubble, you have these like bop it intro vocals, which I'm using. I think the drums are better here. The song, though, to me is just very strange. I think that second chorus throws in some synths at least, but yeah, another strange one to me. Count on Me, definitely a big downshift here. The best pure singing, definitely on the project overall. I think the Aespa members sound good here. It actually becomes more of a lively beat as the song goes, so perhaps this is probably the highlight for me, surprisingly. Angel 48, the BPM definitely gets picked back up, beat tempo wise here, definitely more dancey. Vocals are a bit restrained. You know, some spoken word sections. You know, I think vocally, like Aespa, they're SM. You know, they are great singing, all four of them, and there's just not a lot of great moments of that, right? You think of like the power of Winter's voice. Doesn't have many chances to jump out on this project. It's just a shock. To the girls, the last track, guitar comes back, but vocally, I thought it was pretty dull. So yeah, I was really shocked at how let down it ended up being by this. And I'll continue to go back to the stuff from last year, because again, Armageddon, Supernova, Set the Tone, Hot Mess, Whiplash, even the Whiplash remix with Steve Aoki, man, banger, banger, banger. I love Up. I love the sound of the new Karina solo that's unreleased right now that they're performing live. That has a lot of promise as well. Sounds pretty cool. So hopefully we get that soon. But yeah, Rich Man, to me, this one clearly came and went. If you're an Aespa fan, tell me what you like about this. Because again, I'm coming to this as someone who loved what they did last year. And I just don't know how you can appreciate this. Like, this is so clearly less interesting and less fun to revisit than what happened last year. I just don't get it. So let me know. If you get it, tell me what it is I'm missing. But for more music reviews, more K-pop reviews, subscribe. And I'll see you next time. What's up, Wolfpack Nostalgia? Dave here with a review of Joey Badass's fourth album, Lonely at the Top. This is Joey's first album in 3 years since his album 2000 came out, which of course was the follow-up, the sequel project to his acclaimed debut mixtape 1999 from over a decade ago at this point. I've seen Joey Badass live. Gosh, I should have counted. I think it's 5-6 times at this point, whether it was as an opener, as a headliner, part of Beast Coast, etc. I'm a massive Joey fan. I've been a fan since like 2012, right? I remember when he first popped up on Mac Miller's Macadelic mixtape on the song America when he was like 16 years old. Now he's like 30. He's been in our lives for fucking ages at this point, right? And he's still pretty young. I'm a big fan. I think he's really great. And Joey has been in the news more so than he normally is, honestly, recently, this year, right? He kind of ignited a brief but entertaining West Coast rap beef, where he ended up sparring with various Top Dog Entertainment members, chief among them, of course, recent signee, XXL freshman Ray Vaughn. They had quite the back and forth there. I did think Ray Vaughn naming a diss track Ho Era as a reference to Joey Badass's Collective Pro Era was pretty funny. Joey even gets called out by YG on his song Hollywood. Ty Dolla $ign, someone who's featured on this new Joey album, even mentioned in an interview that Joey deserved this, even though, of course, him and Joey are still cool and friends and working together and all that. Was it like necessary? Not necessarily, but like Joey, I give him credit for wanting to stand up for New York, for East Coast hip hop after all the hype around the West Coast sound following Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us and the success of GNX and all of that, right? I give Joey credit, even if you maybe don't want to bark up the tree that Kendrick is at the top of, right? Nonetheless, he seemed to come out of this largely unscathed, I guess. On the other side of the coin, though, Joey delayed this album several times, openly calling out label beef he has with Columbia Records, which is kind of strange to me, right? Because it's not like Joey has ever been like a super commercial rapper, right? Obviously, he's had some songs that have kind of broken out, like a Devastated, like a Temptation, right? But for the most part, that's not the kind of music he makes, not the kind of artist he is. I don't understand like the purpose of like label meddling with him, right? He's successful. He's, makes money. He's great. He has a great touring business, right? Like why? He's an actor, right? He's got a brand. Why mess with Joey? Like he's got his career in order. It's a weird situation. Nonetheless, we finally got the album. Joey Badass's fourth album, Lonely at the Top, is largely okay. I think this is not the most interesting Joey album. I think conceptually, vision-wise, it probably doesn't wow you at any turn. Nothing's really bad or poorly executed on this album either. It's just more solid Joey music, and if you're a fan of Badmon, you'd probably like some of this, like I do. But this is an album that doesn't have the very easy to grasp concept of something like All American Badass. It doesn't have the nostalgia leaning of 2000. It doesn't have the high-end bangers of Before the Money. It's just not really on the level of those records. To me, clearly the highlight is Superfly, which is a great vibe shift for Joey with this very active synth line, this energetic flow, propulsive track. I think this is a great entry into his track list. That's this clear highlight from this project. He had that advanced single, Dark Aura, the drum, the bass guitar line, kind of this like swirling beat. I think Joey's he's fine on this, right? Like the second verse, the delivery is a bit more energetic. The beat, though, to me is like a little inert, given like the energy Joey's trying to lay down the track here. So like it's okay. I think Swank White's pretty fun with West Side Gun. It's really just kind of like a typical gun track more than anything else. With Superfly, you also have that Bree Steves feature, and I really enjoy her like understated delivery on the hook. I think it really brings the song together. Joey overall, I think just brings it on this track, really rides that beat. It's a fun track. Definitely the one I've been going back to the most. I'm not sure if Joey could have made a song like that before, too. It kind of speaks to, I think, his growth and experience. High Roller features A$AP Ferg. Of course, when I saw Joey perform with Peace Coast in 2019, they brought out A$AP Ferg as a special guest in New York City, and that was amazing. And then right as they brought out Ferg and he does Plain Jane, the concert gets concluded because of an impending thunderstorm, because this was an outdoor venue. I still have pain about what could have been and where that night would have went. Nonetheless, Ferg, cool that he's here. Not what you expect from Ferg, though. It's more of like a Jamaican patois type of delivery. Wasn't really expecting that from Fergie Ferg here. I think the airy, chorus singing from the other feature, Kel's Too Busy, I think that's just okay. But I think more than anything, I'm just kind of intrigued by what Ferg did on the track more than anything else. Ready to Love, this is the Ty Dolla $ign feature, Hit Make a Beat, a sex jam for sure. Not the energy I usually go for from Joey, to be honest. I think his flow, though, is really nice on these snares. More of like a melodic delivery, and that's definitely something he's also improved on over the years with songs like Temptation and, Love Is Only a Feeling, things like that. So this is kind of in that mold, even if I don't think it reaches the level of those tracks. Brooklyn's Finest, of course, the Jay-Z reference here. New York Posse cut, in a sense. Rome Street's probably the most notable new face there. Of course, Pro Era collaborator CJ Fly is here on this, which is fun. Beat kind of understated, though, which is weird for a Posse cut. It's really just drums. I think CJ is probably the most intriguing of all the features. Please brings it energy wise. Underwater, this is a sung track, higher pitch, definitely different. Don't really love that too much until it switches into a more familiar delivery. I think that singing is not the most effective stuff. 3 Feet Away, you have more of this like middle register again, better beat. I like the bass drum here. Speeding Through the Rain, I like the doubled vocals effect he was giving you. Still, featuring Absol and Rhapsody, who are both actually opening up for Joey on his upcoming tour, which I'm planning to attend. The song's solid, I think the beat's subtle yet menacing. I like the way the snares come in. I wish Rhapsody had more to do on the track overall, given how great of a rapper she is, how great her bars are. And then lastly, you have Lonely at the Top, which is a classic, like jazzy, dusty type of Joey track. Drums are great. The flow is tight. Joey sounds great, very pensive, very wise in what he's trying to get across, speaking to his maturity and his experience. Really like that track, great closer. So yeah, Only at the Top, solid Joey record. Don't know how much I'm going to revisit too much of this apart from Superfly. Kind of how I felt about 2099 in greater respect, where it's like, man, like bangers from Joey. Whether they're just from him, whether they're from him as part of Beast Coast, whatever it might be, that's like pinnacle, like New York rap of the last, 15 years at this point. That shit will live on. That's why he can continue to tour as successfully as he does. That's why I will continue to go to his shows, just to hear those songs live again. When he plays Christ Conscious live, man, does that shit go. When he plays Survival Tactics at the end of a show, he plays Survival Tactics at the beginning of a show. When he plays, stuff at the end, like he plays like Devastated and stuff, and you're jumping around, you realize you're jumping around with like kids who were like 5 years old when Joey premiered. It's like, wow, this is a guy who's like actually transcended multiple generations of rap fans, and he's only 30 years old. It's pretty cool. So yeah, I remain a big fan of his, even if I think this album is just okay. Let me know though, what do you think of Lonely at the Top? And for more rap reviews, more music reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here, the review of Sabrina Carpenter's 7th album, Man's Best Friend. This album is coming, just 1 year since the breakout, Short and Sweet, last summer, 2024, 6 months since the deluxe version of Short and Sweet came out. Yes, it's her 7th album, but really it's the 3rd album of her as like a fully formed like adult artist, and the 2nd since she's become a massive A-list pop star, one of the main forces of the pop girl summer we had in 2024. I was a bit surprised to see an album come out so soon, given that she was extensively touring, well into 2025 off the strength of Short and Sweet. And the strength of Short and Sweet cannot be understated. I mean, Espresso as that lead single, Please, 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 Taste. I mean, at one point she had 3 songs in the top 5 on Billboard Hot 100. Massive, massive records, multiple Song of the Summer contenders with Espresso leading that pack. Good album cuts as well on that record, like Bed Chem. It was a complete coming out party, and I think a really exciting one in that regard, just because the pop convention that Sabrina Carpenter was bringing to the table which is fresh and exciting because it wasn't too long ago we were talking about pop not really breaking any new stars anymore as veterans continue to linger on the charts and always be around almost by default. And then you have a bright new face like Sabrina Carpenter come out around the same time as Chappell Roan and the same time as Charlie XCX finally getting mainstream recognition at scale. And it was a really exciting time in pop. And now we're back again with another Sabrina Carpenter album, and it's coming with a lot less juice and a lot less hype. And that was kind of, by default, right? It was kind of hard to see it not going this way. I think about like the Dua Lipa album that came out last year that just unsurprisingly failed to live up to the previous album's performance and expectation and all that. But with Man's Best Friend, I mean, you have the lead single Man Child, which is doing numbers. We're approaching 400 million streams on Spotify, and we're not knocking that. But Espresso is 2.5 billion stream song. We're in a different stratosphere. Sabrina Carpenter's seventh album, Man's Best Friend, does a lot of the things we've come to appreciate about Sabrina Carpenter recently, namely her very frank songwriting, playful, taboo, explicit lyricism, definitely pushing the boundaries farther than most people do in the modern pop landscape. Sabrina Carpenter will speak plainly that she is a girl who has certain needs, and she has a personality that she will imbue into those songs. It's fun music, it's amusing, and it's charming. Is it a bit try-hard this time around? Maybe. I just don't think the songs are quite there this time around. The energy level of what vibe she's going for this time around, it was a bit more throwback than I was expecting. I mean, on more than one occasion, you're like, wow, that is sounding a lot like Dolly Parton. That's just not what I was really expecting from her direction-wise. And I gotta say, working with Jack Antonoff, production-wise, didn't exactly bear fruit. Songs that aren't as up-tempo and as enjoyable as her big hits of last year. On that lead single, Man Child, you have this playful meta bridge. I just find the chorus is kind of less interesting. The chorus just kind of fails the song in a certain sense compared to those verses. And like meta is a very common theme with the Sabrina music now. I think Tears, kind of a highlight. I like Manchild for what it is. I said you just have to appreciate it on its own terms, not really compare it to the past stuff, right? I think Tears is kind of similar to that, where there's really nice bass drum. Understated, like soft vocals from Sabrina, though, like not my favorite necessarily, although you do have, I think, kind of classic bar from Sabrina, I Get Wet at the Thought of You, super on brand. My Man on Willpower, I think this also gets to a core like Sabrina Carpenter songwriting theme, which is just her like appreciation for like the basic competency of a male partner. It's funny to listen to. This was an acoustic track overall. Nobody's Son, this one seems to be taking off a bit on social media. I think the kick drum really saves this song. Vocally, though, I think it's just okay from Sabrina, even if the songwriting's pretty tight. Never Getting Laid, perhaps a bit over the top. The Watch the Fight, You Got a Right Hand line, though, definitely made me chuckle. And I think that's just, again, a common theme. Like, she'll just kind of make you laugh because she'll actually like just say it super plainly. When Did You Get Hot? Drums starting to wake up on the album with this track. Fun tempo. I like the kick drum on the chorus. Vocally, I think Sabrina's a bit more free, a bit more loose on this track. Lyrically, still very much in her mode. Go-Go Juice, though, we go back to acoustic once again, definitely laying on the twang vocally. I think the end is very slow and drawn out, not my favorite overall. Don't Worry, I'll Make You Worry. The snares are super slow on this one. The track overall is pretty slow. It's fine. House Tour, this one has been extensively compared to, peak Madonna in a good way overall. Does it fit the rest of the album? Not necessarily. Would I like more of the songs on Man's Best Friend to sound like House Tour? Probably. It is what it is. That disco flare's still pretty darn good. Yeah, I mean, it's just not an album I think will resonate nearly as much as Short and Sweet. I mean, it's so obvious, right? But also, is there a nonsense on this? We go 2 albums back. I don't think so. I don't think Man Child is on that level. I don't think Tears or Nobody's Son's on that level. Just in terms of the catchiness. Now, there's definitely songs that will fit right into her live set list. She's already performing them. That's good. It's successful in that regard, but just not quite. It's intentionally not quite the way it went last year. Maybe she deserves some credit for trying to do something a little bit different, but I think production-wise, I would have preferred a bit of a different direction. Let me know, though, what did you think of Sabrina Carpenter's Man's Best Friend? How did you feel about this in relationship? Short and sweet? Are you having a hard time separating the two like me? Let me know. And for more music reviews, more pop reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. All right, that's going to do for the pod this week. Next week, we have a bunch of stuff all ready to talk about. New album from Cardi B. Her first album since Invasion of Privacy in 2018. It's been a long time coming. We'll have a lot to say about that. Also, new album from Brent Faiyaz, which will be cool. The new Margot Robbie, Colin Farrell movie, Big Bold Beautiful Journey. We have Gen V Season 2 on Amazon Prime Video. The conclusion of Alien Earth on FX and Hulu. A lot to get into. So make sure you subscribe. YouTube.com/nostalgiapod. Linktree.com/nostalgiapod. See links below. Get the best of 2025 Spotify post linked below. Let me know it's good, and I'll see you next week.